Just check with yourself, Adam, if we are ready to rumble. Thank you all, and welcome to today's Combined Authority meeting. Since we last met, as you know, quite a lot has happened at the centre, and there's a new government with a very clear new approach to devolution and engagement with mayors and combined authorities. And it has been very pleasing that I've had more engagement with government in the last few weeks than I have for the last 3 years. So it does feel that there is a new direction of travel from the centre. We've also launched our route options consultation on the first phase of mass transit, with proposals to introduce a tram on 2 corridors between Leeds and Bradford, and from Leeds city centre to the south. I'm very pleased as well. It was only launched days ago, and already we've had 1,900 bits of engagement. So that sounds like people are ready to have that conversation, and they have some thoughts. We also have a new leader of Kirklees. So welcome, Carol Patterson. Following the council meeting last week, huge congratulations, and I look forward to working with Kirklees going forward. All of these issues are going to be picked up in the agenda, so let's crack on. Adam, any apologies, please?
Apologies for absence have been received from Councillor Denise Jeffrey, Councillor James Swillian and Mandy Vidyard, Councillor Scott Patient, Councillor Matthew Morley and Asma Iqbal are in attendance as substitutes.
Thank you. And can I also say welcome to Councillor Barry Anderson, who will be the chair of the Scrutiny Committee. And I know he's going to take a very professional approach to holding us to account, also having good ideas, hopefully, and a new approach. The scrutiny is going to be one committee, as you remember, with resources and support for scrutiny members to be really engaged with us in the next few years. So always welcome your presence. Thank you, Barry. Okie doke, can I pass over to Rebecca Brooks to provide us with an update on associated member matters? Thank you.
Thank you. Morning, members. Following changes last week in leadership at Kirklees, the Combined Authority has received notice terminating Councillor Scott's appointment as the Combined Authority Constituent Council member for Kirklees and appointing Councillor Patterson as the replacement member with Councillor Crook as the substitute member. Those changes take effect from tomorrow, Friday the 26th of July, and therefore Combined Authority membership for this meeting today is unaffected. The changes do have implications for the Combined Authority membership on committees, and in addition we've been notified of further changes to local authority co-optee committee nominations, which have been approved under delegated authority, however only after publication of the agenda and papers for this meeting. Therefore those changes will be formally notified at the September Combined Authority meeting, alongside committee nominations for Combined Authority members that require approval.
Thank you. That's reassuring that everything is as it should be. Brilliant. Okie doke, moving on to declarations of interest. Do any members have any interest that they wish to declare against any item on the agenda? No, thank you. And item 3, exclusion of press and public. I'm not aware of any item that requires the exclusion of the press or public. Is that correct? Yes, thank you so much. Okay, moving on. Item 4, minutes of the meeting 20th of June 2024. Are there any comments or questions on the minutes? Are we happy to confirm the minutes as an accurate record? We are, thank you. Okie doke, moving on to item 5, which is the Mayor's update. As I said at the beginning, that a lot has happened. I wanted to use my update today to keep the Combined Authority informed of the engagement we've had with the new government. I was fortunate enough to be invited with the other mayors to number 10 to meet the Prime Minister, his Deputy Prime Minister, along with 11 other Metro mayors in the UK. And that was cross-party, and I think that's definitely the way to go, looking forward to the next few years. It's really a vote of confidence in devolution, and very welcome. I don't think anybody had had any sleep, and it was only 4 days after the election, so it was very good to see how they prioritised the mayors. The new Chancellor came to Wellington House in her first week of office to meet myself and the Mayor of York and North Yorkshire, David Skaith, and Oliver Coppard, who sadly had COVID, so he was online. But we talked about how collectively we could grow our economy, create more jobs, put more money back into people's pockets. It's clear that this government see mayors as the lever for greater growth across the country. And in lockstep with their ambition, I also have that ambition to put more money into people's pockets. That's why my manifesto pledge, we would have a local growth plan in the first 6 months of becoming mayor. I'm really pleased that we have an update on that later in the agenda, and that's going to be at the heart of my relationship with government going forward. As the chair of the UK mayors, I've been asked to work with others to help shape the English devolution bill and the new Council of Regions and Nations, putting mayors, local government and devolution at the heart of the new government's plans. Our task is really clear, that we've got to deliver that economic growth for the whole country, as well as for the people of West Yorkshire. So in addition to the Prime Minister, I also met Liz Kendall, with Secretary of State for Work and Pensions. We had a really terrific visit in Leeds to a charity that provides high quality clothes for women trying to get back into work. I've spoken to Jim McMahon, the new local government minister, Jackie Smith, the skills minister, Lucy Powell, the leader of the House of Commons, Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary. It was at the Licorice Festival, but you have your meetings wherever you can. And we had a very good meeting over a coffee about the things that really matter to us in West Yorkshire. Also met Louise Haigh, the Secretary of State for Transport, and as I say, I met Johnny Reynolds this morning, who is the Business Secretary, who it was very pleasing to see that he met Mandy Ridyard at Farnborough, and he and the Prime Minister spoke about our ambitions in advanced manufacturing, space and tech. So it's good that she gets out and about as our champion as well. Tomorrow I'm due to meet with Bridget Phillipson, Secretary of State for Education. And as I say, the engagement has been really welcome. And early conversations about further devolution to our region have been positive, but we can't shy away from the fact that with greater devolution and more powers, more flexibilities, then there is a greater expectation on us to deliver. You will remember the 3 words that we should have, I definitely need tattooed on my forehead: deliver, deliver, deliver. We have to actually focus on that. If we're going to be demanding power is pushed out of Whitehall, we have to make it work. We've got to prove that it delivers better results. Because if we don't, those naysayers, and there are a fair few of them, particularly in Whitehall and Westminster, they will want to row back to the past. And they won't be shy in telling us that we've got it wrong, that all decisions have got to come from the centre. So this is our opportunity to show how England is going to be governed. And I know that we will do a good job. Also, if I may, I would like to use the Mayor's update just to take a few minutes to reflect on the public disorder in Hare Hills last week. Although my Police and Crime Commissioner functions are governed separately to the CA, I just wanted to put it on record here. I went on Friday with Alison Lowe, my Deputy Mayor for Policing and Crime, to meet with community representatives at Catch. Some of you may know the extraordinary organisation in Hare Hills led by serving police officer Ash, to offer any support that we could. And honestly, so distressing to see that amount of violence carried out by a criminal minority. So I'm doing all I can to help those affected. Can I thank and put on record the exceptional community engagement from KINS, from councillors, Salma Arif in particular. Many of them stayed up through the night, grabbing bits of sleep where they could, over 2-3 nights, to try and calm tensions in Hare Hills. And as I said on Friday, I was absolutely appalled by the criminal behaviour of a small minority, and I'm really grateful that West Yorkshire Police have made dozens of arrests, and those people that committed those crimes will be held to account. My role as Police and Crime Commissioner is also to hold the Chief Constable to account, so we will be having further conversations about their reflections on the choices that they made and the impact they had on policing on the day. That will be in a special community outcomes meeting that we've arranged with the Chief Constable, and it's our opportunity to ask those questions in public, and that's in early September, so we can look at the incident in more detail. So James, I know that you've been very involved in all of this, and I know that you put in a fair shift as well, trying to bring things to a calm resolution, but I'm just going to hand over to you if you want to say anything.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sure lots of people will welcome your comments around holding to account those people that caused the disorder. I'm sure the whole combined authority will want to show our support for the police officers, for our council staff and children's services, communities and environmental services who responded. I think it's really important to recognise that people saw the scenes on TV and social media last Thursday evening. However, in the aftermath, nobody was injured, no homes or businesses were severely damaged. Our street cleaners were out on Friday morning, and Hare Hills was back up and running very quickly afterwards. And like you say, a lot of that was down to the work of the police in responding and our councillors on the ground bringing calm. And we really, what we saw was an incident of disorder which nobody accepts, but it certainly is not. It certainly is not a representation of Hare Hills, a brilliant and diverse community. So we'll continue to work with. We'll continue to work with people living in Hare Hills. We'll work with the councils and the organisations on the ground to make it a strong community, and so everybody can move on positively from the shocking events we saw on Thursday.
Thank you. And if I may say, it was very pleasing to see that it didn't roll over into the weekend and that the following day was calm. And I think that is down to the work that has been done and the investment that's been made in that community to build those trusted relationships and partnerships. Any comments? Yes, Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Councillor Lewis. And it's just to echo, as a Leeds councillor, your comments. I absolutely endorse your tribute to Councillor Salma Arif and her colleagues, community leaders, for the work they did to calm the situation. It was shocking. I endorse what you said about the criminality and the importance of bringing people to justice. The reason it's so shocking is because it's not something we see regularly. It isn't a reflection of Hare Hills. It isn't a reflection of Leeds. That's why it was so shocking, because that is not something we experience on a regular basis. I want to echo and add to Councillor Lewis's comments about our social care staff and the vital job they do in keeping children safe from harm. And in all of the coverage in the media, I think their role was lost somewhat. The importance of what they do day in and day out, and what a difficult job they have. And I applaud them, and I think it's important that we make a shout out to them for the respect and esteem that we hold those staff in. There are obviously a question to answer. I'm pleased with what you said about the review meeting. I fully recognise this is not the board to be raising any questions about policing. There are clearly, we have to learn lessons and understand and do it properly in a timely manner. It's too soon and too close to be doing that right now, but I think we all join together in condemning the actions of those criminals, and applaud the police for so many arrests and making sure that those people are properly held to account.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb. Any further comments? No, thank you. So let's move on to item 6, priorities for the new government. I've already listed the previous engagement, so I'm not going to repeat that. But what this paper does is it summarises the key points we've raised directly with government, and an early opportunity for us to discuss those around this table. You'll note that the paper was prepared ahead of the King's speech, so it refers to the Take Back Control Bill, which has now been renamed as the English Devolution Bill. Could I invite Sarah Eaton, our Director of Strategy, Communication and Intelligence, take us through the paper, please?
Thank you, Mayor, and I'll not go over the recent developments, because I think there have been many since obviously the paper was written, but I think it is worth just focusing perhaps on the West Yorkshire offers and asks that we included in a letter to the Prime Minister in advance of your meeting with him on the 9th of July. And as you'll see in the paper, I think the main focus of that letter was to outline the kind of opportunity and ambition for the region to work with the government over the coming months in terms of kind of helping shape and influence kind of what's coming and moving forward. In particular, the letter sets out what the CA is already doing in terms of developing the local growth plan, which is on the agenda today, and I think we're quite well advanced in terms of preparing that. It provides a really good framework, an opportunity to work closer with the government to kind of move and progress forward with those asks, in particular kind of securing deeper devolution for West Yorkshire, underpinned by kind of that long-term multi-departmental funding settlement, which is something that we've been committed and I've had ambitions to kind of progress for a while. I think alongside that, the letter reiterates the point about reducing the number of kind of funding streams and kind of that competitive bidding process, which we know takes up such a lot of time and is not kind of conducive to the way in which we want to work moving forward. And alongside that kind of that plea really for greater freedoms and flexibilities over our funding moving forward. I think we've also set out our ambitions to be a trailblazer area and developing a partnership mechanism with kind of MHCLG, DFT and HMT around some of our ambitions, particularly around mass transit, to establish an accelerated funding and delivery process moving forward. And I think also around our ambitions around creating, more urban extensions, regeneration projects and more affordable and social homes within West Yorkshire, which will enable us to kind of deliver on our growth ambitions. I think the other key point in the letter that we've reiterated is that absolutely critical point about securing certainty, flexibility and kind of fairness in local government funding, which we know is going to be really important in delivering kind of the government's growth agenda. And that's a point, again, that we've made on previous occasions. In addition to our other asks and offers, they very much align with CA ambitions, particularly around securing net zero carbon economy for West Yorkshire by 2038 and doing that through some of our programmes that we've got real ambitions to deliver on, particularly Home Energy West Yorkshire programme, formerly known as the Better Homes Hub, but also around our ambitions around kind of strengthening devolved flood management programmes to improve resilience within the region. Quite timely is that kind of ability to kind of work more closely with government, tackling serious violence, supporting victims of crime, and perhaps challenging and rebuilding the police and criminal justice sector. So again, the letter sets out our ambitions in that vein, and also our ambitions around developing a region of learning and creativity. So that those asks that we've asked previously around more devolved funding, around career skills and employment are going to be really important in terms of supporting that kind of local growth plan. So again, we've re-emphasised that. Over the coming months, it's going to be really critical that we continue to develop those relationships, and in particular that opportunity to kind of influence and shape the English devolution bill is going to be really important over the coming months, that we kind of work with government to kind of help shape that. And I think what we're doing locally is around thinking about those powers, freedoms and flexibilities that we would want to see in the region to help us deliver the local growth plan. We know that in the King's speech, the English devolution bill is going to really focus on that, kind of a wider devolution framework. So that opportunity for us to kind of really work at the forefront with our direct relationships, but also with your relationship through UK mayors, I think is going to be kind of the work that we need to take forward over this coming period. And making sure that we kind of set out kind of what West Yorkshire's got to offer. But again, as part of that, thinking about how we're going to deliver moving forward. So I'll stop there and just enable people to perhaps think of any questions or comments.
Thank you, Sarah. And obviously we've heard announcements from government, and there's a fair bit of our ambitions shared by the centre as well. So, for example, listening to Bridget Nichols-Phillipson talking about creative subjects being brought back into schools, our region of learning and creativity, some of the things that were in my manifesto are being reflected at the centre, which will make life easier for us. But I will continue to make the case in every meeting that I've been in that we need those flexibilities and freedoms of a single settlement, because so much of our ambitions are tied up in that we've got to end this begging bowl approach where it's short-term funding. And also I reiterate every meeting, we cannot deliver if our local authorities are being hung out to dry. So we have got to make the case for local authorities to get the funding that they need in order to deliver on all of our ambitions, particularly around the growth agenda. So any comments on that paper? Yes, Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, it's just a question on the last point you made around local government and funding, and if you can give any indications that you've been given in your many conversations with ministers about what the direction of travel is for local government.
I can say that having spoken to Angela Rayner, she absolutely understands the challenge and that short-term funding is not effective, and I think there is the view that longer-term funding is going to be helpful. I don't know if Councillor Hinchcliffe would like to come in on that, given your role at the LGA.
I think obviously it's very early days, isn't it? I mean, how many months are we in now? 10 days, 14 years of austerity. But I'm really pleased that Jim McMahon is the new local government minister. Jim McMahon has been the Oldham leader when he was outside Parliament, and I'm optimistic that he understands the challenges, and therefore we're hoping very much to see some deeper understanding of local councils and what they actually deliver and how we actually prevent costs from emergency services, for example. I think all of us in this room understand that, and it's great to see that we have a government now with people on the front bench who also understand that challenge. Of course, the finances are challenging nationally, and we're cognizant of that, but obviously I would always champion local government over every other service, because that's what we are, aren't we? We're local government leaders, so we'll keep going. Thank you.
Thank you. And early intervention surely is the way to save money as well. Yes, Asma Iqbal.
Hi, just want to look at the point regarding breaking down barriers for opportunity. All very good, and I'd like to see how that looks in implementation, and what the government position will be in assisting in that regard, because the opportunity and the barriers is something that keeps coming up again. We've had difficult discussions up until now, so I'm keen to see what the breaking down of barriers around opportunity is going to look like, and there's not much more on that in here.
Thank you, Asma. If I may just jump in and say, one of the biggest barriers to opportunity is an inability to get to where you want to go. And those jobs, those skills, training, and that's why mass transit and bus franchising was so important. You can't get in and get on if you have no security of tenure. That's why housing is so important in our strategic planning around housing. But it is a Venn diagram. But Sarah, if I could come to you, and maybe we could take that away for further development. But it is in there, isn't it? It's in all the paperwork.
It is, and I think it's the fundamental point in the paper is how some of the devolution proposals linked to the local growth plan, and very much the local growth plan. I think we'll also be looking at how we address some of these issues and really look across all of our activity at how we do break down those barriers. So I think that is some of the kind of reflection, I think, which Felix will come on to around the focus of the local growth plan, which is not just around kind of place, but also about people and how we join up to this activity to kind of really fundamentally kind of deliver on that local growth ambition. I think the powers and freedoms and flexibility is going to be really important that we help shape what they are, because that's a way of sweeping away some of the challenges that we've had with delivery over previous years. So I think it's important that we kind of look at those two things in tandem and we join up, and I think that's why the context and the devolution is sat now under that local growth plan. So really important that we join that up together, but we'll take that away and make sure that is a focus moving forward.
And Asma, just to reassure you that in the meeting with the Secretary of State this morning, talking about growth, it's not growth at any cost. It's not about pouring money into advanced manufacturing and PhDs and level 4s above. It's about making sure that everybody has the opportunity to really flourish. So, but thank you very much for raising it. Okie doke. Lovely. If we could then move on to one of my favourite subjects, bus franchising. Following that historic decision in March to introduce bus franchising, I asked the team to bring a paper to us to look at the programme for mobilisation that's in development. Loads of work still to do, a lot of learning to be done from other places, which is really helpful, that there are people who are the first adopters and we can learn from them, and people in different states of the franchising process. So if I may come initially to, Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, Chair. I don't think we approved the recommendation on the last paper.
Thank you so much for your attention to detail. You're absolutely right. And I am going to, I think Alan has got his P45 that he hasn't told me that has happened. So can we approve the previous paper? Thank you. Councillor Lamb, thank you for your diligence. Let's move on to item 7, bus franchising. I was over keen. So if I could come to Councillor Hinchcliffe to just talk us through as the Chair of Transport Committee.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is just the latest paper on bus franchising, the decision you took, Mayor, just a few weeks ago, in fact, but we've moved on very quickly from then. And there's been lots of transport announcements, and I know we'll come to mass transit at some point in the agenda as well. So just going back to devolution and new Labour government, it's going to be really good. They've obviously spoken very positive about devolution, more powers, hopefully more funding coming our way, and it just enables to do more of this kind of work. It's going to transform lives, transform economic opportunity in West Yorkshire, and this is just one of those building blocks to get into that. So just happy to pass over to Simon or whoever to go through the detail on this.
Thank you so much, Simon.
Thank you very much. So within the paper, as you've introduced, Mayor, we have set out the activity that's been underway around early mobilisation since the decision was taken in March. As we set out at the high-level timeline in paragraph 3.7 of the report, and then more detail at 3.15, we are now on a timeline such that we will go to the market with a tendering exercise for the first time in October 2025, and by the end of quarter 3 2028 we will have mobilised and let and have in operation a fully franchised bus system in West Yorkshire. We've organised mobilisation around 5 core work streams, and I'd just briefly like to familiarise members with those work streams and then go on to set out what we are seeking approval for through later items on the agenda. The first of the work streams is around network planning and network management. So here in particular we are looking to make sure that we've got absolute clarity in terms of the organisation of the bus network that we will be franchising, and the key planning and management tools that we will need to have in place to ensure that we optimise both the definition of the network going forwards, but also its operation on the streets. And we've talked, for example, before around how this fits with the combined authorities' policies for bus priority in particular, and timely operation of our network across the system. The immediate focus in that regard is around clarifying the final lotting strategy for the network. So members will recall that we will be going to the market in 3 tranches. We are finishing the process now of mapping the contemporary bus network across to those 3 lots, so that we can set out very clearly both for the combined authority and then for the market precisely the spatial territory of that lotting approach. The second area of work is around assets, and again members will recall that our strategy is to seek to acquire the 9 largest depots that we have in West Yorkshire, and to introduce a 10th large depot around which we will organise the bulk of the activities, with smaller depot activities still being managed through the market. We now have agreement with the owners of all of our bus depots for a preliminary inspection regime, and we are carrying that out at present so that we can understand the state of the assets and therefore our best approach in terms of looking to move forward with those asset owners. We are also then looking to move on to develop further our fleet strategy, and we have been engaging with other combined authorities in this regard, recognising that there is significant fleet activity taking place across a number of combined authorities, particularly actually in the north of England, and where that may take us, for example, in the context of a future industrial strategy. Third area of work is around the contracting work stream. So we will need to develop and agree a contracting mechanism for the first time for West Yorkshire. Significant activity in its own right. We've just recently completed a process to appoint a professional services consortium to work with us on this work, and the next time that I bring the item forward, I'd very much like in particular to spend some time introducing their work to members and starting to set out how that activity will move forward. Our fourth area of work is around data transition. So again, as we've discussed previously, franchising delivers significant new network data to the combined authority. We have to be ready with the right systems to handle the data that we will receive and to be able to use that in an intelligent fashion. And so we're currently developing a management information strategy so that we can resource up against that strategy and ensure that we are in the right place. And then the final and frankly the most important of all of the work streams is the customer strategy, which should and will dominate everything that follows in each of the other four strategies. As members are aware, the decision was taken in order for us to be able to consolidate the customer offer across our public transport system in an integrated fashion. This is where we will look to bring forward a consistent network branding approach, which is not simply about identity, it's about the customer standards that we then want to be able to set for each aspect of the journey and the guarantees that we want to be able to give to residents in terms of our approach there. And I've set out in the bullet points just some of the areas that we need to touch on. The entire programme we intend to be overseen by a new director, and I'll come back to that point under item 16 on the agenda, Chair. We have previously agreed in the March meeting the mobilisation budget to the same figure as was set out in our bus franchising assessment documentation, and I've now set out at paragraph 3.23 how we intend to organise early spending around the £5.389 million that is proposed for the first year, and also where we will hold a certain amount of reserve at this stage to support us in second half of the year activity. And finally, there is also the intention over the next year for us to work closely with members to look at the right ongoing combined authority governance regime as we move to the letting of the first contracts. We recognise that a very clear commitment within our franchising plan is around accountability, and therefore it's very important that we've set out the right governance arrangement well in advance of us going into that tendering process in autumn 2025. I'll leave it there, thank you.
Thank you so much, Simon. Any comments and questions? Yes, Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Simon. I'll start by saying, obviously, you'll appreciate how we all want better buses, all of us around the table. My view was that franchising wasn't the best way to do it, but you'll be pleased to know I don't intend to rerun that argument every time we talk about it. The job now is to make it work as best as possible, make sure it stays on time, on budget, and that it's actually delivering what it was intended to do. Couple of questions. First of all, we had some officers come to a community meeting in our area last week. They're clearly intent on expectation management, which is important and something that we need to do, and I'll touch on it, Simon, that while obviously, as you say, that we'll have a fully franchised network by 2028, the expectation that was being set out was don't expect there's going to be any major changes to routes or significant changes to experience at that point. That will be the start of trying to improve that. The second point I wondered if you could talk about is the importance and the opportunity of cross-boundary working. And I'm not alone in my area. We're on the edge of this administrative boundary, but also on the edge of a number of other administrative boundaries. Councillor Lewis would make the same point in his area, and others around the region would have the same issue. And it's really important that this doesn't start and end at our administrative boundary, that we've got a clear plan for those that want to live outside but come and work in West Yorkshire, and vice versa, people that need to get out. So just wonder if you could talk about how we plan to connect our franchising model into those that are around us, so we're not sat here in isolation.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb. Just to reassure you, it's conversations that I've had, cross-boundary conversations with both David Skaith and Oliver Coppard. You're absolutely right, these borders are becoming increasingly porous, aren't they? People might live in Leeds and work in Harrogate or vice versa. We need to make sure that there's that cross-boundary opportunity. So Simon, just a couple of those points.
Yes, thank you. So with regard to change within the network, that there are two principal considerations that we will need to continue to work through. So our first consideration is that the exercise in the change of the management system is a significant exercise in its own right. And therefore it's our working proposition at present, and we set this out within the assessment documentation, that on the first day of operation of a franchise there is minimal change in the shape of the network from the day previous, and that's in the interests of the passenger and in the interests of us bedding in a management arrangement that then allows us to look further at change, and to ensure that from the last day of the previous operation into the first day of the new operation, we can guarantee to our customers that their services present themselves in a way that they understand and rely on in the context of access to work, school, and so forth. Clearly, the second issue is around the revenue models going forwards in terms of the bus system. There is active discussion underway at the moment between myself and my team and our colleagues in Department for Transport, and that's also happening at a national level through the Urban Transport Group that we are members of, to look at the forward funding model for bus services in all parts of the UK, certainly outside of London, but specifically within West Yorkshire. As that starts to bed itself in, and that's a very timely discussion for us given our run into autumn 2025, we will then have that contemporary understanding of the revenue base that's available to us, and that then gives us the opportunity to understand how much further can we take our ambitions in terms of service expansion, because we have set out very clearly that with the right resources in place, we recognise that we would like to increase the intensity of the bus system that is out on our streets.
Thank you. So with the phasing, there will be three regions by 27 that will be fully franchised, and then by 28 the whole network. But also that doesn't mean to say we're not ambitious, and we are delivering more routes. And the Bradford Superloop that you may have seen a couple of weeks ago, well, before the election, that we announced, we're doing everything we can to improve the networks currently in order to make the experience better, and particularly that backroom stuff, that real-time display, that's got to be better. The tap in, tap out, 90% now of all bus tickets are on the M card. That is fantastic, that we need to, keep powering that through. So like the Oyster card in London, being able to tap in, tap out also makes it easier and builds efficiencies as well. But Councillor Douglas, you wanted to come in.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'm just really speaking and reflecting Councillor Lamb's comments about that cross-border work. Obviously, the interdependency of the economy between York and North Yorkshire and West Yorkshire and South Yorkshire is really important, and we have a an unprecedented, quite literally unprecedented opportunity, don't we, to make sure that that really works very well for us all. But there are, of course, important stakeholders across those borders and boundaries, and I know that York will be particularly interested in that stakeholder engagement when it comes, to make sure that we fully understand the potential implications, both opportunities and challenges for our systems, and making sure that we're attempting from early days to integrate, because York and North Yorkshire have high aspirations as well, to make sure that we're moving our people around our region effectively. And I know that we can work together to make sure that that happens and benefits us all, taking workers to jobs and jobs to workers, in whichever direction that might be. So please continue the good work on the interaction with our Mayor, and thank you, Mayor Braben, for doing that. It's hugely important, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the positive outcomes of that. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Simon.
Apologies to members. I'd overlooked answering the cross-boundary question. So yes, cross-boundary considerations are incredibly important to us. As we now complete, and it's a matter of a couple of weeks, that mapping of our lots, we will then have a contemporary representation of the network, which identifies, as we understand it, those cross-boundary services that we would look to let as a franchise service, because they are operating principally from West Yorkshire out into neighbouring areas, and those that we propose would operate under a permit regime as we set out in the draft scheme, which are principally operating from an external location into West Yorkshire. At that point, through that network planning regime, we'll look to establish a consistent and regular forum with our colleagues in each of the neighbouring areas to develop the right management plan for that. And of course, it's a changing arrangement that's taking place around us. So in Greater Manchester to the west, we already have a franchise system. We know that there's advanced consideration of the model in South Yorkshire, and it may well be, as legislation comes forward, that starts to move more at a pace in other areas. And so we will make sure that the process that we have in place with our colleagues is agile enough to be able to respond to that. But the point is absolutely critical. We're not an island. We have to be able to manage cross-boundary services as part of our integrated approach.
Thank you, and it gives me joy or misery in Slough to see the B network outside my door. So I'm very aware that the Oldham buses come into Kirklees, and we will have those conversations continually. But thank you very much for raising that point. Okie doke. Any further comments? Oh, sorry, Matthew. Apologies.
Story of my life, that. It's all right. Yes, welcome the report, obviously, but we are in the people are very impatient. 228 is still quite a way off, and we're still seeing demise in Wakefield of further bus routes. Western coaches have now, they've gone in the southeast, which is already one of our poorest transport network links in the Wakefield district. So that is concerning me, that we're still losing more routes, more companies, one thing or another. That can make it harder once we do take franchise and put them back in place. So I do think, mate, it is important that tranches 2 and 3 of BSIP is so important that we do get that out into our districts to make sure that we are booking and we are plugging them, gaps in the market, these bus routes. So it is imperative that we do carry on with that.
Thank you, and I'm sure, Sam, you can offer reassurance.
Yes, absolutely. So through the BSIP programme, which Councillor Hinchcliffe and the Transport Committee have been overseeing, we have been using resources to address in particular a number of those withdrawals that we saw over the past 12 months or so in the Wakefield area. That there remain challenges in the context of the bus companies in the area, both withdrawing in part from the network, and also the large major operator Arriva experiencing driver recruitment and driver retention issues at times, and we are looking to work with them. We've been encouraging them recently to become more involved with us in the support that the Combined Authority can give in terms of driver recruitment, which we've worked well with first on Arriva, possibly because of changes in their corporate ownership have perhaps been a little slower. I am hopeful that they are now responding to that, and we have all of the operators present at the next meeting of the Transport Committee on the 28th of August, where I'm hoping that Arriva will start to set out a clearer plan for members in terms of how they work with us over the next few years to stabilise and then start to put back better the network in Wakefield, which has really suffered over the past couple of years.
But also, doesn't it show you why we need to franchise the network and bring it back into public control? Because Wakefield in particular has had such a bad deal of it. Councillor Hinchcliffe.
Yeah, I mean, just for clarity, obviously, BSIP phase 1 and 1B, is it a 1A or 1A, 1B, have been successfully rolled out. I think there's still discussions ongoing, as you identify, Councillor Morley, about phase 2 and phase 3, which I think will be subject to further discussion. But the phase 1, I think Wakefield, we've put quite a lot of investment into Wakefield. As I say, phase 2 and phase 3, we still need conversations about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Patient.
Thank you. Yeah, similar to Councillor Morley in terms of some of the issues around services reduction and how that's working. So I guess one of the key activities is a lotting strategy, and Calderdale's in round 3 of that. So I think there's a thing around similarly it's going to be 28 until we get some of that benefit. So I think part of ensuring that services are well maintained during that transition process is something we need to really keep a keen eye on, and that's something that tracks for us for Wakefield and other places as well.
Thank you so much, and that's a great comment, that whilst we are franchising the network, we cannot take our eye off the ball when it comes to keeping as much of the network running efficiently as possible, so thank you for that. Okie doke. Oh, sorry, not Councillor, Asma.
Just a quick one, Simon. The procurement and recruitment aspect, I know you said with the financial services, that's something that you'll be setting forth. I often hear many local businesses raise issues around that being outsourced, and I'm hoping that we're going to try and keep it local. When we
Simon?
Absolutely. We've increased the proportion of consideration that we have within our procurement frameworks around social value, and that consideration of impact within the local employment market right across our procurement regime, whether it's capital schemes, professional service or otherwise, is something that we value very highly. There are one or two commercial aspects within the negotiation of bus franchise contracting which needs to call on certain skills that are only available at scale. But no, to reassure the Combined Authority, we take that duty around social value and local employment through public procurement very, very seriously.
Thank you, but thank you for raising it with us. Okie doke. So can we recommend that the CA notes the updates provided in this report? Lovely, thank you. And that the subject to funding of 5.3 million being approved by the Combined Authority at item 13 of this CA meeting agenda, that we endorse the approach to mobilisation as set out in the report. Thank you so much. Brilliant. Okay, moving on to another transport-related item, West Yorkshire Mass Transit progress update. As I said in my previous remarks, we launched the consultation of mass transit and the transport plan, the local transport plan, that sets out how it's going to be integrated, and that's been a real focus for us, the integration of transport in that London-style model, really important. So can I encourage everybody to share the consultation widely amongst your fellow councillors? We need as many people to be engaged at this stage as possible. So whether that's a disability group, Fatima Khan Shah is helping me as well as my inclusivity champion, making sure that we hear from the voices of the people who use the buses. And Asma, I know you will be helping me sharing that widely. So thank you. And obviously, I've been speaking in every meeting about growth, but you cannot grow the economy without having better transport, and mass transit is so pivotal to that. And I was very pleased to speak yesterday to the Infrastructure Commission, who early on identified Leeds as one of their 4 regions that need massive investment in infrastructure, and they identified mass transit as the way forward. So I think that was also very persuasive to a Conservative government. I'm hoping that their continued support will mean that we get that from the centre as we go forward. So the paper in front of us marks the important next step in the programme, asking us to release the next stage of funding to continue the development. And also, I'm a Yorkshire woman. I need to know how every penny is being spent. We don't want any waste, particularly because we've seen infrastructure projects across the country being derailed because they've gone over budget. Simon has been rigorous in feeding back to me, but I also need your keen eyes as well to help us make sure that we are on budget, on time to deliver, and that every penny in this project is worth the same amount as every penny in housing, in skills, in the creative industries. We have to watch every pound and make sure that we are held accountable for the money that we have to deliver this project. We do not want it to unravel because nobody was keeping an eye on the money. So thank you for that. Can I invite firstly Councillor Hinchcliffe to comment on the report and then hand over to Simon?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, as you say, we had a great launch, was it last week now? And it was very well received, I think, by residents. Really excited about the opportunities here. I think it's worth emphasising that this is like the first line, but obviously you have to start somewhere, don't you? It will grow from there. You just need to see other cities about how expansive their networks are now. And they're adding lines and adding adjuncts all the time. But this is a first step for us, and I wish we were like 10 years earlier on this, but we are where we are. So it's great to see it develop to this stage. I think as we go forward, and obviously, as you say, the last government and this government have been very supportive of West Yorkshire Mass Transit. As we go forward, though, we need to be really clear about our ambitions for integrated transport. So we talked about bus franchising, we talked about mass transit. Rail is also very important to our connectivity. None of those replace any of them, so they're all required. So this isn't a shortcut to our rail ambitions, for example. It does a very different job. It does a different job to buses as well. And for us in Bradford, this will connect communities which are not currently connected really by any public transport. So it is really important for that purpose. So I think as we go forward, as we present all these transport proposals, it's very important to say how they fit in the wider integration of transport, and not to say, if you fund this, you don't have to do anything else. You have to do everything, I'm afraid, because as the National Infrastructure Commission said, you know, we are disinvested in here in West Yorkshire compared to other areas in transport. That, with the Mayoral Combined Authority, is now changing, but we need to keep up that pace of delivery. So thank you.
Thank you. And if I could just add to that, what we need is choice. In London, you have choice. If one network is down, you can use a bus or you can go on the light rail. There are choices. We don't have choice here. And that's where that line to Bradford is so important, because it's going to be the stopper. And then you can have fast commuter trains between our 2 big cities. The direct train from Leeds to Bradford will open up so many more opportunities for young people in Leeds and Bradford to move between both cities. Simon.
Thank you very much. And yeah, it's been very heartening over the past 10 days or so to have given a series of presentations and have that strategy so well received. We've pulled together a few slides here on the advice of the Mayor, Councillor Hinchcliffe, and also the Mass Transit Members Strategy Group. because this is a very important consideration in terms of the release of significant funds, and we wanted to be able to ensure that members are fully briefed on the need for this expenditure. So having set out that our strategy and our vision, I'm afraid these slides are about the workings, if you like, a little behind the strategy, but incredibly important. So if we just move to the first slide, please. Thank you. So we've been on a significant journey already as West Yorkshire. Over recent years, we have established a very clear vision for mass transit at the heart of our integrated transport programme, and we have set out and agreed with government a programme level strategic business case for that vision. That has unlocked up to £200 million of development funds from government, and we are now progressing our first phase through the consultation and through further business case development. If we could go to the next slide, please. And we're very clear that you have given us a mission on two fronts. So firstly, to establish an accelerated phase one programme to delivery from 2028, but critically at the same time to progress the case for future lines in parallel with phase one preparation, so that we can start to establish West Yorkshire as the future centre for mass transit development and delivery through this decade and through the 2030s. To achieve this, we need to now step up again in terms of the intensity of the work. We have to be able to progress business case development at a pace and at high quality throughout. We have to ensure that we are taking the community with us and continuing to secure strong support for our proposals. We need strong central government support on two fronts. One, for our case, but also in supporting that we are ready to take on the scale of delivery that's involved with a mass transit programme. We have to make sure that we are ready to secure timely Transport and Works Act powers, which will most likely include a significant examination in public stage and also necessary local authority consent. We need to be ready with financial and commercial models, and we need to make sure that we have properly engaged with the market in terms of our commercial approaches. If we move on again, please. And that process is guided through the business case process, which I've set out here. So we are currently at strategic outline case for phase one against options. Excuse me. By the turn of the calendar year, informed by the consultation, we then want to be able to set out what we have termed a strategic outline case plus. So this is a strategic outline case for our preferred routes as opposed to the options through the corridor. That will then take us on to preparation of an outline business case, which will inform the detailed consultation and will be a critical component in our submission to the Transport and Works Act process. Thank you. And then by the point of delivery, we will have to have in place a full business case. And what the chart sets out here is the maturity of each of the 5 parts of the business case that we need to go through. And members will see that there is a significant step up from strategic outline case to outline business case, and that very much drives the intensity of activity and the resources that are required. If we move on again, please. We've set out in the report, first of all, an outturn statement against spend so far. And I just wanted to briefly summarise the sorts of activities that have driven those costs. So we have commissioned and built for the first time a West Yorkshire transport model. We've previously undertaken modelling activity at a locality level within West Yorkshire. We have to have a network-wide model to be able to capture the level of benefits. That is a significant activity in its own right. We have now got teams assembled and an approach to the consenting and Transport and Works Act processes that lie ahead of us. We've started to resource up significantly in terms of both the internal team, resources within our partner authorities in West Yorkshire, and we now have also let two significant sets of contracts that take us right through to full business case in terms of having programme development partners in place and also design and development partners in place. We've developed up each of the options that are out to consultation to REBA 2 standard, and we've been through that first round off process with DFT in terms of the strategic outline case. And so if we move to the next slide, please, it's those activities that have driven the expenditure to date, which we've set out in the report. One line that I just wanted to dwell on for a moment is the line which is taken from our financial accounting system, which identifies a range of activities as combined authority team resourcing. It did worry me slightly that might be read as simply a payroll budget for the combined authority, which I can assure members it isn't. That brings together the costs of the programme development partner. It covers all of our communications activities, office accommodation. It's where we also house a series of risk costs in addition to combined authority staffing costs. I thought it was important just to draw that out there. So if we then look at the next slide, please, I start to set out the content which is set out in more detail in the report of the activities that are required over the next 12 months of work. So we now, first of all, need to prepare that strategic outline case plus for the turn of the year. And that will require us to update our strategic case in the context of consultation findings and the conclusions that we draw from the consultation, placing it in the context of our local growth plan, and we're looking to support our local growth plan with a mass transit growth prospectus, which will set out at the next level of detail the relationship between growth, regeneration and the principal investment of mass transit. We'll need to take our value for money statements to the next level of detail. We will have a first stage development of costs from a bottom-up approach, because we will then be talking about specific routes as opposed to corridors. That in turn will take us into the next level of detail around a land strategy that relates to those routes and a series of environmental impact statements against those specific routes. And alongside that, if we can move on, please, through the next 12-month period, we also move on straight away into outline business case work. So at this stage, we're taking our preferred routes, once we've agreed them through consultation, into detailed design. We'll be looking to use a series of tools to understand land impact, environmental impact, to also be ready to communicate issues such as noise impact through a second consultation. We will carry out then a detailed scheme appraisal exercise using the new West Yorkshire transport model. We will need to have a full understanding not only of whole life costs but also our funding options, so that we can meet the requirements in terms of not just the economic case but now moving much more into a financial case for our scheme. And we will need to have developed operating models to further inform both financial case, commercial and management cases. We will be into significantly greater in-depth activity on a legal front to prepare for the Transport Works Act application, and be preparing for a statutory consultation, which will be the nature of the 2025 consultation. And all of that, of course, brings increased complexity in terms of programme management and technical requirements. And so if we move on to the next slide, it's those activities which then start to drive up the big spend items over the next 12 months. And members will see that in particular work around detailed design and environmental impact recognising the critical importance of us being able to respect through a statutory consultation impact on every single neighbour of our scheme through those routes really starts to ramp up at this next stage. Final slide, just to give members assurance around the costs. So we've undertaken a benchmarking activity by drawing down a series of more recent UK and Ireland rail and light rail schemes to identify the range of development costs as a proportion of the anticipated final costs of a programme. They range from 6% to just over 12%, depending on whether our scheme lands at the lower end of our spectrum, 2 million, or the upper end, 2 billion, or the upper end, £2.5 billion, and that will be driven very much by the final routes that we choose to pursue. Our development costs in total will sit between 8 and 10% of our anticipated final costs. So we are mid-range in terms of a typical development spend. And of course, all of the funding that we are drawing on for that activity is additional central government funding that we have secured. There is no impact on either combined authority or local authority local resources, and everything that we undertake will continue to be managed through our task order processes. So they are headline figures that we're seeking from you through the budget here. This is not a carte blanche then for people to draw down against those numbers. Each individual task order will be scrutinised through our processes. We will continue to report regularly both to the member strategy group and here to the combined authority. And we have also now set up a three-line process in terms of technical officer scrutiny. So we have an internal portfolio board overseen by myself and the chief executive. We have a partnership board in place between ourselves and directors of development across the 5 authorities. And we are currently finalising updated terms of reference for a cross-government co-sponsor board, which will be jointly chaired by myself and a director from the Department for Transport. And then we will be picking up conversations through that sponsor board with the Minister's office around the relationship between yourself, Mayor, the combined authority and the Minister in terms of shared decision making. So we have a significant accountability framework in place to oversee this spending. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that thorough presentation. And this is a national, nationally impactful scheme delivered locally. So I do think, that government involvement, whilst we're going to get on and deliver it, I think that we can't have them then swooping in towards the end with questions and conversations. Really interesting. I spoke at the Light Rail conference last week, and there was a bit of cynicism about us being able to deliver. So I'm really pleased to have been able to see the £1 million for Kirklees to really re-emphasise the point. This is not a Leeds project. This is a West Yorkshire project where the spine, as Councillor Hinchcliffe has mentioned, the spine is just the beginning. And our ambitions definitely do not stop there. So going further south, going out to Wakefield and to Calderdale, these are, they are decade-long ambitions, but they're definitely there and part of our thinking. So thank you for that. Have we any comments on what you've just seen and heard? Yes, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Simon. You're right on a lot of things you said. There will be a lot of naysayers around this. I'm going to make a quick observation. Unless my eyes are deceiving you, you've missed Wetherby off the map again.
Surely it's on the map. Please don't tell me Wetherby is not on the map. It is on the map. It does exist.
I can't see it. It's very small, to be fair, but it's...
I can see Wetherby out there.
Okay, well, I need to get my eyes tested.
Yeah. There's a spectator there.
Yeah. But one of the key points I wanted to make is a lot of people look and say, right, well, it's going from Leeds to Bradford, it's connecting the hospital, nothing to do with me. It's a lot of people are a long way from it. I'm not one of those people. I think we have to start somewhere. Councillor Hinchcliffe's point is absolutely right. We're decades behind where we should be on this. All of us at times could pick holes about the routes, and wouldn't it be better to... I'd love everything to start in Wetherby. I think everything should start in Wetherby, but I'm also a realist. That wouldn't be the main economic point to start. The big sell that we have to do in the consultation is to really get across to people why this matters, not just to the people on the direct route, but to the wider region. It spreads out again across borders. This has the potential to be hugely impactful to York and Harrogate, places west and south in time. And there's a big job for all of us to do in the consultation process and beyond to sell that. And I think this is one of those occasions where all of us, we have to put party politics aside. At times, we're going to have to hold our noses, and the odd political jibes we might like to make, I absolutely commit to putting those aside. We have to hold everyone to account and make sure that it stays on time and on budget. But I really think we have to work hard collectively on the presentation about how we sell the benefits of this starting point to the whole region and district. The second point I wanted to ask about was one of the things when you have these big projects that slows them down is once you get to public inquiry and people are immediately impacted on the route, potentially you've got to knock buildings down, displace people, displace businesses. It always seems we end up having negotiations about compensation that take years and years and years and years. And I just wonder if, as a strategic approach to start with, we say we're just going to put generous offers on the table to people so that we don't get bogged down. This needs to happen. We understand some people are going to really be impacted on it, and where that's the case, let's compensate them properly. Let's have those conversations early, and let's make sure that's not the thing that slows it down.
Thank you, honestly, for your support for this project, Councillor Lamb, because your clever youngsters in Wetherby will want to go on to engineering apprenticeships on one of the biggest infrastructure projects in the country. We've already got TransPennine Upgrade. We're already the magnet for engineering and investment, and now we will have mass transit. There is no other project of this scale happening anywhere else in the country. And when we did our cluster work for our growth plan, in the centre of the Venn diagram of all of our sectors was the engineer. And just imagine the opportunities for all of those young people. And that's why Felix and others, we are looking at the skills pipeline from youngsters from 16. In 4 years' time, we're going to need transport planners. We're going to need, digital transport experts. How do we make sure that this impacts not just on the travelling public, but on everybody having access to great, well-paid jobs as well? So it's a real opportunity to grow the economy on many different levels. So I'm enormously grateful. And also I would say there will be disruption. There is no doubt about it. There will be people who will feel my community is being disrupted. My home, where I've lived all my life, is going to go. But I really hope we can make the case that we will be supportive, we will carry people through this journey. And I know that we're already understanding where some of the potential routes that, remember, we haven't decided on a route yet, which routes could impact which communities, and they are very much front and centre of our thoughts. Simon, I don't know if there's anything you want to add?
So firstly, I should make the point that this is the reason why my communications team say that I should not be allowed to have PowerPoint on my system, because I cut maps up. So that Wetherby is on that map, but I do apologise that it hasn't appeared. And we are of course having some really good conversations at the moment around improved connectivity for Wetherby. So I'm very positive that will be moving forward. The whole point around compensation is clearly incredibly important point. We're very, very sensitive to the fact that we are developing a mass transit system through an urban area, and that requires an approach to placemaking, as we've already previously agreed through the combined authority, that has great sensitivity and looks to apply good design standards to the arrival of the system within those communities. It also means that where there are specific impacts on properties, that those have to be handled with due respect to all residents and other property owners. And we've already set up a specific contact line with a land partner supporting that activity, so that residents and property owners are able to have a particular dialogue with us through this initial consultation. We will look to progress through an accelerated process wherever possible, but we will be very respectful of the fact that there are specific sensitivities in specific locations, and we will handle those at a pace that is sensitive to property owners.
Thank you so much. I'm very aware of the time. We have so much to get through. I'll speak about the time in a minute, but just, are there any further comments on what you've seen so far? Are we happy to move on? Councillor Lamb.
So it's a really
Councillor
quick one.
Lamb, it's a one-man show. What's going on?
Sorry, yeah, it's important stuff. How is this going to plug into the local plans and local plan updates? Because when we had our latest briefing in Leeds, it felt that officers were saying, well, it's too far down the line for us to be thinking about it, but we're allocating sites actively now. To me, it's a no-brainer for driving growth that development sites, employment land, etc., are linked to the mass transit routes. But there seems a real disconnect between where the planners are and where we are.
Thank you. If you could take that question, please, and Councillor Lewis.
Yeah, I was going to help Councillor Lamb out by assuring it is part of the work we're doing on the local plan. Clearly, the route was released last week, seems a long time ago now, and it will be part of the emerging local plan that we're developing. So I don't know if we've got that information, we'll have to have a chat with you about it, but it is like I say, it's part of our local plan and getting that sustainability, and by having that link between development and good sustainable transport link. So I can assure you it is part of that.
Thank you. Okie doke. Do you need to comment? That was thorough enough.
Simply to add that's exactly one of the reasons why there are resources within the budget for local authority partners, to make sure that we've got the right complement of colleagues working, and there is cross-directorate activity within the combined authority as well. So myself and Liz Hunter's functions are working very closely together with local authorities, specifically in those areas.
Thank you so much. Are we, if we can move on, if the committee is very happy to do so, can we note progress and the current position in relation to the mass transit programme? Thank you so much. On the basis that the DfT has appraised and noted the continued development of Phase 1, the CA approves the mass transit Phase 1 scheme proceeds through to decision point 2, which is strategic outline case, and work commences on the development of the enhanced strategic outline case SOC Plus for Phase 1. Let's see a show of hands, please. Thank you. Lovely. Additional development costs of 47 million are approved to develop and submit the enhanced Phase 1 SOC Plus to the DfT and to progress the Phase 1 OBC. This takes the total scheme approval to 81 million. Are we happy to approve? Thank you. Further future approvals are made in accordance with the assurance pathways and approval routes outlined in Appendix 1 to this report, subject to remaining within tolerances. We're happy to approve. Thank you. And to note the launch and details of the public consultation for Phase 1 mass transit. Thank you. Okie doke. Take a little breather, because just to remind people, this meeting is scheduled till 1:30. Just to make sure everybody knows that, because we can't be in quorum at the end. I am wondering if this committee would like some sandwiches sending out for. Something to eat so you don't faint or leave for a sandwich. Can we take a vote? Does anybody want a sandwich?
I brought my own.
You brought your own? All right, so a handful then, please, Alan. We just don't want people leaving because we have important business to do. And can I just say the frugality of Bradford and Leeds? And very, very efficient, thank you. Okay, let's rattle on. On to the local growth plan. The next item is the update on the plan. I promised you an inclusive economy with jobs and opportunities. And as I say, this plan was promised in my manifesto, and it's going to shape the strategic direction of the second term. And I think we're really beginning to understand what the opportunities for our economy are and what we need to do to support them. Because we have, like Scrabble, we have many different letters and sectors. And because you have very many different sectors, you can put them together like Scrabble into new words, words you've never thought of. And I think that is an opportunity. We are not just one sector like car manufacturing. We have varied sectors that can give us so much more innovation. And so this is a collaborative effort, and thank you to all of you and your partners for helping us. So if I could come to Councillor Lewis as Chair of the Economy Committee to comment on the report, and then hand over to Felix Kumian-Pofo, our Director of Inclusive Economy, Skills and Culture, take us through the process so far. Councillor Lewis.
Thanks, Mayor. I picked up some subtle hints about timing in your last comment. So all I'll say, I think it's really positive we've, as a combined authority, we've kept from sort of bringing the LEP in those really strong links with businesses in West Yorkshire. That's been really important, but I suggest we go straight to Felix.
Thank you so much. Felix.
The paper you've got sets out the progress we've made so far, and it just tests your appetite in terms of where we are going with this, what the scope looks like, the content we are presenting, the commitments we're testing out, what the priorities are, and to ensure that the board is happy with where we're going with this and the speed at which we are moving. I suppose it's fair to say that in the last few weeks, especially since the new government assumed office, local growth plans have very quickly dominated the headlines in a lot of the conversations that we have. And the scope, the expectations of these plans, its link to the national industrial strategy that has been promised, its link to single settlement, all of that comes into very sharp focus when we're thinking about the local growth plan and where that could take us. So no pressure on anybody, but we are proceeding with this at some pace. The paper you've got and the slides that came to you set out the conclusions from the evidence assessments which we brought to you last time. 3 broad conclusions there about how the extent to which large parts of our labour market remain insufficiently skilled to take advantage of opportunities, and on the demand side of the economy, so to speak, the deficit in investments from our businesses and from other partners, particularly in innovation, which has led to, over decades, the slow pace of productivity growth in the region and in the country in general. And thirdly, the inadequate infrastructure that we have. We've just had the board has just discussed transport in some detail, and the investments there, the inadequate infrastructure that we've got in transport, in housing, in the development of employment sites. All of these are significant barriers to growing our economy. It's also important to note that because of that, this plan, and the clue is in the name, is focusing on growth. It's focusing on how we grow the economy at some pace, at some scale. As the Mayor said earlier on, this is obviously not growth at any cost. We are very cognizant of how important it is for us to have growth that regenerates the environment, growth that closes the inequality gaps as we've got them, but growth nonetheless. Otherwise, we will be only including people in poverty. So it's really important that we have growth that generates prosperity and which reduces inequality. So on the back of that, the rest of the paper then focuses broadly on 4 pillars. Investment needed with our businesses to deal with the productivity challenge that I alluded to. Investment in our people to deal with skills and opportunity and inequality and poverty. Investments in our transport network. We've had a discussion about that, and investment in our places, particularly in developing in housing and employment sites and other environmental and other infrastructure. And a set of commitments then are set out in the slides around region of creativity and innovation and learning on the skills side, or commitments to a sense of excellence in innovation, access to markets and finance for our businesses, all the way through to the other pillars. The slides then conclude with a nod to work that we're doing with our local authority partners in particular about key local priorities that are really crucial and will remain crucial to the work that we'll do together to grow the economy. And in subsequent iterations of this, you will see that those priorities are woven into the rest, the fabric of the narrative and the commitment that we're making. We're also doing a lot of work with our university partners, thinking about the system that our economy is made up of, and there'll be a lot more set out in the iterations that follow. And finally, there's a lot of work that we're doing on an outcomes framework, which will encapsulate what the measures are, what the targets are that we're going for, how much growth we're going for, how many jobs we're going for, and the extent to which that will make a difference when it comes to the trajectory that our economy has been up to this point. So I'll leave it there in terms of a summary, but happy to take any comments. Thank you.
Thank you. This is such exciting work because we are such a massive opportunity for growth. And I was on a call today in London, we're saying we're a growing economy, like, oh, shucks. But we are where the action is going to be, because we are going to be the solution to the problem that is facing government, is how we grow the economy. So thank you. Any comments on the growth plan, which of course is an iterative document. It's going to be changing, and it will change again when we hear from government as well. Councillor Patient.
Thank you, and I'll be really quick, mindful of the time, but Felix there spoke around environment, prosperity and reducing inequalities. And just to say that Calderdale last year passed its local plan, and last night at full council we had a suite of 5 supplementary planning documents that we passed, and they actually tick all those boxes, from flooding, biodiversity net gain, affordable houses, and we had a design and placemaking one that incidentally we won a national award for in terms of engagement. So we're very much in delivery mode and ready for that. We've got the supply, we know where they need to go, and we're cognizant of some of the surrounding issues that make sure that feels like an inclusive approach.
Congratulations to Calderdale for that, because that's exactly where we're all heading as local authority partners, isn't it? To deliver that growth strategy. So thank you. Any further comments on the growth plan? No, thank you all so much. So can the CA consider on the progress made so far in developing the emerging scope, framework, priorities, commitments and general content in the draft local growth plan as set out in Appendix 1? All happy to approve? Thank you all so much. Okie doke, moving on to item 10A, project approvals, investment priority 3, creating great places and accelerated infrastructure. This is project approvals. So in the same spirit of Calderdale, we're going to rattle through a number of approvals. Details of 2 brownfield housing fund schemes recommended to the CA for progression through the assurance process. Can I invite Liz Hunter, our Director of Policing, Environment and Place, to take us through the recommendations, please?
Thank you, Mayor. So 2 projects here for your consideration. Firstly, the Canal 30, which is in Bradford, in the city centre, looking for 70 apartment homes in a series of 3 former textile buildings. Really great to see these historic buildings being brought back into use on our brownfield land, and particularly thinking about the kind of low carbon homes as part of the conversation we've just had. This is a change request, so it is to increase the amount of brownfield housing funding requested by a further £240,000 because of increased tendered costs. We have scrutinised the costs, as you'd hope we would do, and they have been shared, so it's not all come to us as a request. The second scheme is in Wakefield, so great to see this coming forward, a development of 63 new homes for rent and sale in the city centre, including the redevelopment of the old police station, again an area of brownfield land. And again, real focus on being all electric with installation of things like solar PVs and electric vehicles. And they're looking for 1.6 million from the Brownfield Housing Fund. I'm happy to take questions and hopefully for your approval of those two today.
Thank you. Any questions on those fantastic schemes? No? Okay, let's move through to approval. Can we approve the scheme outlined, as you've heard, to go through to the assurance process with approval of the CA's funding contribution, approval of future assurance pathways and routes? All happy to approve? Thank you so much. Brilliant. So 10B, investment priority 5, delivering sustainable, integrated, inclusive and affordable transport. Now this approval provides details of 11 transport schemes recommended to the CA for progression through the assurance process, excuse me, and one scheme that's seeking endorsement. Firstly, if I could invite Councillor Hinchcliffe to comment on the report, and then over to Simon.
Thank you, Mayor. Obviously, a lot of this is about the active travel coming through, which we're very pleased to see. We also have some bus station, rail station hubs in here. Obviously, we were talking earlier in the fact that the bus interchange proposal will come through September time. I know you're very anxious to see that, as I am, and when the survey results are back in. But in the meantime, there's lots of projects here across the whole of West Yorkshire that are needing advancement, and pass over to Simon. Thank you.
If I may say as well, if there are comments as we go through, please do indicate. But we will go through all of the comments before we take approvals, all of the projects before we take approvals. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you, Matt. I'm going to be very quick in the interest of time. So our first scheme is ready for delivery now, which is the Bradford Access to School programme. And that draws down on the Active Travel England funding set out in the report at 4.1. Our second scheme is the A61 bus, cycle and walking improvement programme, and again looking to move the first parts of that activity now through to full business case development. Our third scheme is the A639 bus, cycle and walking improvement programme, again looking to address a series of, in this case, cross-boundary pinch points between Wakefield and Leeds, and again looking to move to full business case. Our next scheme is the A629 scheme, looking to move into delivery. This is the Ainley Top into Huddersfield scheme to be delivered by Kirklees Council. We then move to the a change request on the Newton Bar A650 scheme. This is looking to increase the combined authority costs such that in total we move to £11.549 million scheme contribution into that scheme in Wakefield. We have the A6177 Thornton Road scheme in Bradford, which is now ready for delivery, so seeking full approval for the previously agreed budget for that scheme. We have the bus station improvements programme, series of improvements to our bus stations here around measures such as real-time information and also small improvements to schemes, and we're looking to bring that now to strategic outline case stage. We then have the bus stops and shelters improvement programme that we are looking to take through strategic outline case stage and into full business case stage, and I'm particularly keen that we move that forward to continue to show our demonstration to our bus network following on from the franchising decision. The Leeds City Centre Cycle Link scheme is now ready for approval for delivery, and so we are seeking full approval of the contribution into that programme. We have the Transforming Cities Fund Heckman Wyke Bus Hub scheme. We're seeking a change request here. There is an increase in costs. It does fall in line with inflation that we have seen around similar capital schemes, and this scheme is now ready for us to progress into delivery, and so we recommend that is an appropriate additional drawdown from Transforming Cities Fund. And a similar change request for the Normanton rail station park and ride scheme. Members will recall that we previously agreed that we would carry this one forward before the pause on some of the park and ride activities that we have undertaken. So we're now seeking an increase of £431,800 into that scheme, and the Kirklees scheme around the Kirklees Huddersfield Southern Corridor activity. We are looking for approval to move through full business case so that we can see the early delivery of that scheme. The report then finally just goes through a number of schemes which, between myself and the Chief Executive, we've approved under the previously agreed scheme of delegation. I'll stop there.
Super, thank you. You can take a breath. So let's draw those together. It doesn't feel like there was anybody that wanted to comment on particular schemes. So are we happy to approve the 11 schemes just spoken about to progress through the assurance process with indicative approval for the CA's funding contribution and the funding contribution for scheme development and delivery, and approval of future assurance pathways and approval routes, and the recommendations are set out in the report. All happy to approve? Lovely, thank you. And also, can we endorse one further scheme, the Corridor Improvement Programme, Kirklees to Huddersfield Southern Corridor, to progress through the assurance process with indicative approval for the CA's funding contribution and a delegation to the Combined Authorities Chief Executive? Happy to approve? Endorse rather. Thank you so much. Okie dokie. Moving swiftly on, and you can take a breather now, Simon, to item 11, which is the Shared Prosperity Fund. This has been subject to a huge amount of work, and I want to thank everybody, all the local authority partners as well, for working with us on this. This report outlines progress and key developments, and also updates on the core UK SPF, Multiply, and the Rural England Prosperity Fund. It's an updated progress and also our approach and allocations for the uncommitted UK SPF funds, and also to approve a delegation to the Chief Exec and Director of Finance and Commercial Services to authorise any further movement of funds within the programme. We need to move their money out and into the communities that are going to benefit, including the management of any project underperformance, underspend as it becomes available, to ensure all funds are kept in the region and maximised, and also to approve a further change to the Rural Fund operating model. So can I invite Sarah Eaton, our Director of Strategy, Communications and Intelligence, to provide us with headlines from the paper. Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm just conscious of time, so I will quickly run through the paper. I think we last brought an update in February to the CA on progress, and pleased to say that we have made more progress in terms of delivery across all three of those core areas, both the core fund, Multiply and rural. I think, as you'll see in the paper, of the kind of 80 million that's been allocated to those three funds at the moment, we are kind of progressing and committing those funds out. I think just moving on to an update on the core programme, as colleagues will see in the paper, now approximately 98.8% of that programme has been contracted out. And there are 28 projects now which are on with delivering against that core theme. They are set out in Appendix 1, so you'll see that the range of projects across the region that are being funded from that core fund. I think, as we know, despite the fact that we've kind of contracted 98.8% of that programme out now, and good progress that's been made, there have been a number of significant operational challenges with this programme, not least the delay in the programme launch and approval, which has meant that we've had a limited time in which to kind of deliver across the region. So what you'll see there, that despite that contracting out, we've still got approximately for year 3 about £47 million that remains to be spent. So there is a challenge across the region in terms of delivery of this programme, which we have, this is a national problem. It's not a problem that's just unique to West Yorkshire in terms of how the programme has been kind of shaped and delivered, and it's quite a complex programme that I think is well rehearsed in the CA in terms of how we deliver against it. There's also been changes to government guidance as well, which has made the problem more challenging. I think in terms of what we're doing in terms of monitoring that spend, there's quite a lot of work going on at the minute with local authorities and other stakeholders around looking at where there are potential issues with delivery. So we are looking, at the minute we've had reforecasting meetings throughout March with colleagues across the piece, just to make sure that we are identifying any early underspends as quickly as possible, and that we can mobilise and move those resources out to other projects if need be. So in terms of the paper, you'll see that there is an uncommitted core UK SPF allocation of about 843,000 that was remaining unspent. And what we've done in terms of consultation with our partners and the local partnership group is kind of look at ways in which we can allocate that resource out to kind of areas where we think we are going to be able to kind of deliver quite quickly. As part of that consultation, what we've decided to do is try and kind of move quickly, maintain momentum, and actually allocate the resource out in terms of local need, is to issue an allocation to kind of our local authority partners, working with the voluntary community sector, other sectors, and you'll see in the paper there that what we've done is allocate that resource out pro-rated based on the original allocations that we've had for your UK core SPF. So that's set out in the paper, and what we're seeking today is kind of approval for those resources to be allocated, which will take us up to kind of committed the full programme for core over the coming period. Local authorities and partners will have to come back to us to identify what they're actually going to spend that resource on, but it does mean that we can have that local discretion, which is really important in terms of kind of making sure that we meet needs more locally. In addition to that, there has been about a £4,000 allocation of underspend as well, which we're looking to kind of get out. But what you'll see there, and I think what you've alluded to, Mayor, is that we do need to really move quite quickly if we do identify any further underspend in that programme over the coming period. So we will be doing much more kind of careful monitoring, liaising with our partners around where that underspend comes out, and we will need to move quickly to kind of allocate it out. So one of the options is where we do move that money out to perhaps programmes that are over committing at the moment. So there's the recommendation in here to do that for a delegation to the Chief Exec, so that we can actually kind of crack on quite quickly and get that resource out once it becomes identified. But we will need, kind of working quite closely with our partners to make sure that we do identify that funding quite quickly if it does become available. Just in terms of multiply, not to spend too much time on this, but there is that programme has kind of been operating really well, and there's some really good kind of activity that is benefiting local communities that's set out in the report there. So that's a programme that has actually over-delivered, and that might be something that we need to look at if any resources become available in terms of that core funding to reallocate out to programmes that are kind of, really getting out there and delivering well. Just in terms of the rural fund, I think members will be aware that last time round we saw some kind of changes to the operating model that would allow us to kind of get out and spend the rural fund. I think we had got some concerns last time round that we weren't actually getting projects coming forward. And I'm pleased to say that in the report we are starting to see now kind of those queries turning into kind of projects that are coming downstream. But what we want to do, I think, to kind of maximise, again, make sure that we are delivering on the rural fund, is to seek some further changes to the operating model. We know, working with our local authority partners, that we've got a pipeline of projects that are coming forward that will really enable us to kind of deliver. And what you'll see in here is kind of recommendations about extending the criteria further to companies over 50 employees, but also to enable our local authority partners to kind of deliver against those programmes. So there's a recommendation in here for yourselves today to try and kind of maximise spend on that rural programme as well. And I'll stop there. I think those are the key activities that we want to get covered today.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the incredibly detailed and difficult work as a partnership group. It just shows you that this sort of money that we're handling should be rolled in to a single settlement so we can make it work for ourselves. And Multiply was quite difficult to deliver in the outcomes that we wanted. So congratulations to the skills team and the teams that have rolled that out across West Yorkshire, because we've made it work for ourselves, but the government have made it difficult for us to do that. So and any thoughts on Shared Prosperity Fund? Councillor Hinchcliffe.
Yeah, obviously, this is really vital money for local authorities. It replaces the European money that we used to get, and it doesn't have the same scale of investment that it used to when we used to have the European money. So it's very much valued as this money coming into local areas. So good to see it being used to good purpose. I think we just need to be really careful that it goes to places which need it in terms of the most disadvantaged, because that's what this money is for, essentially. So I'm fine for things to obviously go through Chief Executive, but you need to be really careful about equalities of opportunity across West Yorkshire with this, and make sure it's inclusively distributed. And I think that brings me to the point that we've discussed many times, Mayor. I know we're working on that double devolution point between the combined authority and the local authorities, because it was great to hear, obviously, that the new Labour government is going to put more devolution through to combined authority, which I fully support. But it makes it even more important that the working relationship between local authorities and the combined authority is well codified, and then when quick decisions need to be made, you can quickly have those conversations, and there's a framework in place to make sure that that happens, that money gets to the places that need it. So I think sort of acceleration of those conversations, I think, is really needed now. We've got a new Labour government in, and want to make sure we see progress on that. Just regarding the Rural Fund, I know in Bradford we did a lot of work in getting a lot of applications to that. I don't think all of them have progressed to application point, and I'd like us to do a little bit of work understanding why that was, because again, in terms of inclusivity, if there's something that's putting people off applying, we need to know why that is, and we need to work harder to get those communities who are furthest away from some of these opportunities to be able to get a good application together and get it in and get it to be successful. So again, it's all about that levelling up, isn't it, really? I know it's not a fashionable word anymore, but I think it was still a good intent. To make sure that everybody has equal access, and sometimes equal is not the same. It's making sure that you spend more time with some communities than others to make sure they have an equal opportunity to get access to that funding. Thank you.
Thank you, and points really well made. And I think part of this problem is that the government stipulations of who was eligible and so on, actually we've got to be able to make those decisions for ourselves. And the Rural Fund, tiny amount of money, actually, £2 million, and we're in a truncated timeline. So it was already incredibly difficult. I'm going to take a couple of comments. If you want to just answer all of them all together, that probably might be more time efficient. Councillor Patient.
Thank you, Mayor. And yeah, just to echo a lot of the points just made, special thanks to officers. I know it's been a bit of a Kafkaesque nightmare, hasn't it, sort of unpicking some of the stipulations and issues on developing and extending this. So yeah, I'd really welcome some simplification going forwards in terms of the allocation of this fund, and not to get in a pitch battle with you, Councillor Hinchcliffe, around allocation of the Rural Fund, but really good to see us get a lion's share of that so far, we say in brackets, and I think officers on the ground in local authorities assisting some of our businesses and organisations probably been key to making that happen, and I'm sure that's the same elsewhere in terms of what we haven't heard already.
Any further comments? Sarah?
Yeah, I think just to say, in terms of some of the points made by Councillor Inchcliffe, we're taking them on board, and I think the allocation of the remaining, 843,000, we've definitely took on board comments from our partners around how to get those resources out more quickly and to kind of maximise the resource around local need. I think in terms of supporting areas around applications, we have been doing quite a bit of work to support those organisations that might want to translate an idea into kind of an application. So I think colleagues across the region have been kind of working quite hard to do that, but we do know that there's more needs to be done, so we will certainly take that back and make sure that the remaining funds that are available and the projects that are being identified, we are looking to support wherever we can to kind of to maximise that resource. I think that the point is around doing whatever we can to make sure this money stays in the region. That is a really important point, and I think as well as kind of working locally, I think it is that lobbying as well to government around, potentially thinking about how we get approval to extend the time that we've got to spend. So that work is taking place, as I said, nationally. It's not just a local issue. This is an issue that is being seen across the whole of the country.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Okie doke. If everybody's happy to move on, there's just a few recommendations. The first is for members to note the progress and recommendations from the local partnership group. Happy to note. Secondly, for members to approve the approach and allocations of the remaining uncommitted UK SPF.
With proviso that it's distributed fairly across the region.
And that has been noted and taken on board. Thank you so much. And thirdly, for members to approve a delegation to the Chief Executive and the Director of Finance and Commercial Services to authorise any further movements of funds within the programme, including the management of any project underperformance and or underspend as it becomes available to be maximised in the region within the remaining programme period. Good stuff. And fourthly, for members to approve the changes to the Rural Fund operating model as set out in item 3.23. Super. Thank you all so much. And moving on to the digital blueprint, but before we do, I want to really applaud Councillor Lewis and Hinchcliffe for bringing their sandwiches to the table, which do not hold back. Please do help yourself. And I think there are some that have just arrived in the room, is my understanding. Okay, so let's move on to item 12, the digital blueprint. This is a report that outlines the blueprint for approval. It sets out our strategic approach to leveraging digital tech to drive growth, improve the quality of life for people in West Yorkshire. If I can first invite Councillor Lewis to comment before handing over to Felix. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And it's great we've been able to bring this for approval today, and it reflects the endpoint in the work we've done around bringing forward the work through the Business Committee this year and recognising actually the real power of digital in West Yorkshire to support our wider aims, the strength we have in the economy, but also recognising that access to digital services and infrastructure isn't universal across the county, and that we need to do more on that.
Thank you so much. And over to you, Felix.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I'll be very quick. This work, as you've said, has been going on for quite a while. We've spoken to all the key stakeholders and partners across West Yorkshire. We've worked very closely with our local authority partners and with committees, with businesses and others. And we're hoping that the board is in a position today to approve this so we can move on to delivery. If it's reassuring, I'm hoping you would have noticed in the paper and in the appendix that came with it that the pillars that we've set out in the local growth plan, which I referred to earlier on, around people and businesses and infrastructure, that is replicated here. So you can see in the blueprint that the three main horizontals in here around people, around business, and then around place. And we're working that through with a set of verticals. I won't go into too much detail, but it allows us to appreciate the role that digital technology and its applications play when it comes to people, our places, and our businesses, and how crucial that is to growing prosperity and increasing growth in West Yorkshire. It's also key to note that through this work, we've been able to set out very clearly what the key strengths are in West Yorkshire when it comes to digital and digital technology and its applications. We have a really strong ecosystem here in West Yorkshire with the West Yorkshire Innovation Festival and various boards and committees and groups that meet regularly. But also this has highlighted some of the key gaps in provision that we have. And for some of these, we are already addressing, if it's skills, through our adult skills budget and all the various commissions that we put out to make sure people can acquire the digital skills they need. There's a lot of work going on in digital exclusion or inclusion, as it were, to make sure people who really need these skills and are currently a bit further away from that can have access, have the opportunity they need to upskill. There is obviously more work to be done. There's more work to be done on the infrastructure side, and particularly on the rural digital infrastructure side. And this work is articulated that there's a lot of colleagues and activity poised and ready to go to work with national partners to help us address that as best we can. So I'm hoping that the board is in a position to approve this today to enable delivery. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Just one quick comment that it said on page 110, in order to realise the high-level outcomes of the blueprint by decade end. We are not going to wait for the end of the decade. We are going to implement and get going. So just to reassure people. So this is a brief paper, but very welcome. Can we confirm the agreement to approve? Lovely, thank you. Let's move on to item 13, funding pressures, revenue budget revisions 24-25. This sets out our initial response to the funding and budget pressures for 24-25 and recommends changes to in-year budgets. If I could hand over to Angela, please. Angela Taylor, our Director of Finance and Commercial Services, to take us through the paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And yes, as you set out there, this is seeking some in-year changes to the approved budget, which was set in February. That's in response to situations we knew in February hadn't been fully crystallised, and we knew we'd advised them we would have to return to provide an update. The first of those changes, obviously, bus franchising. In February, we didn't have a decision. In March, the Mayor made her decision, and you had a very detailed report earlier from Simon. This paper reflects that work and is seeking the formal approval to put the 5.39 million that Simon went through into the budget for the year. Also picking up from previous meetings, we shared information previously on Bradford Interchange, where we are incurring additional costs due to the current closure. We are proposing to make a budget adjustment of 3.7 million, but we'll be keeping these costs under review as the situation develops and clarifies, and we will bring back further revisions. I think you'll probably see budget revisions at most of these meetings, and obviously if the costs go down, this is a risk assessed figure. There are risks that they may go up, they may also come down, and if there are any reductions on this, that will come back through here to be noted and changed. We've also, since the February meeting, concluded discussions with bus operators. You may recall, on concessionary travel, you may recall we had flagged at February that there was a change to the model that Department for Transport required us to use to calculate the reimbursement. We have now successfully concluded those discussions and managed down what was quite a significant risk of an increase. We've ended up with against a 37 million budget, an increase of only 700,000, which is on the more positive side of what we had envisaged earlier in the year, and is down to some good work by the teams in putting the right factors into the tool to do the calculations. We are not proposing changes to tendered services budgets at this stage, but we are flagging that there is a high risk that those costs may go up. We have been managing increased costs of tendered services through the use of reserves, so we weren't drawing on any additional transport levy, and we are proposing that we increase that reserve using a small amount of the investment income from last year. That's set out in the appendix. and the balance of that investment income is currently against funding the pressures on the capital programmes, which we'll pick up a little in the item that comes next after this on the agenda. So some further detail in the appendices, and seeking approval here, please, to make those changes to the revenue budget to allow those items to progress. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any comments? Questions? Okie doke, thank you. We are seeking approval that the CA approves the changes to the revenue budget as set out in the paper in Appendix 1. Approved, thank you. And that the CA approves the movements to reserves to meet funding pressures as set out in the paper and in Appendix 2. Great, thank you so much. Now moving on to managing capital. This considers the pressures on our capital programme and seeks views on how we can collectively start to look at changes to our ways of working to ensure we are focused absolutely 100% on delivery. This links earlier with our work on the Trailblazer partnership with government, as we talked about earlier, where we need to establish an accelerated funding and delivery process as we prepare for a single settlement. Can I thank partners around the table for that collaborative approach that's got us to this stage? And I know we'll need to work together on our plans more closely in the coming years. So if I could hand over to yourself, Alan, to take us through the report in more detail and set out recommendations.
Thanks very much, Mayor. So as the Mayor has said in her update, and just again now, this paper is all about speeding up delivery in the region, making best use of our resources, dealing with pressures on our programmes, and finally preparing for a single settlement, which is a long-held ambition of the region. And we are, of course, working with all of our partner local authorities on the proposals within this paper. At the moment and historically, we have the challenge of dealing with funding from multiple funding pots, which creates a number of issues. For instance, the business of the combined authority and its partners being overly shaped by the conditions and purposes of pots that are made available by government, and that then affects our ability to deliver the things that are right for the region and places constraints on the way that we manage our money. We want to move, and have done for a long time, to a single pot approach where we can draw on the missions, objectives, principles, priorities of the West Yorkshire Plan, the Local Growth Plan, the Climate and Environment Plan, etc., and use the funds in the most appropriate way to deliver the priorities for the region. There are substantial pressures on the capital programme, which members have had papers on previously, and that's led to recommended changes to projects within both the Transport Fund and the Transforming Cities Fund. And the overall portfolio has become unaffordable within the current funding envelopes for a range of reasons, including cost increases and inflation. And the historical way in which funding has been allocated to the region has tended to drive overly optimistic assessments of costs and delivery timescales and so on, because of, as the Mayor mentioned, the bidding process which the region and local authorities have had to go through. So we are looking to change the approach. So there's some work that needs to be done to look at the capital programme as a whole and identify what headroom is available from contingency funds and so on, so that we can support projects that are ready for immediate delivery and progress those at pace. And during this work, it's really important to say that no project that's currently within our portfolio would be removed from our pipeline, simply moved along it to the point that it's and then funded at the point at which it is ready to go. So there are some changes to our approach that are then proposed. Firstly, we need an approach to determining the programmes and projects that are to be delivered in support of the West Yorkshire Plan, drawing on, as I say, the Local Growth Plan, the Transport Plan, and so on. And in the next item on the assurance framework, there's a proposal in there for a stage which enables us to do that and work with partners to ensure that there is a robust pipeline for all of our investment priorities. And then secondly, the assurance framework would ensure, the assurance process would ensure that schemes that are coming forward have a strategic fit and are demonstrating good value for money. And there would be an indicative funding approval given from the single investment fund generally early on in the process, and we would make sure that there was over programming in order to ensure that we were delivering to the best of our ability, and we would ensure that there were some tolerances in place, so that because we do understand, of course, that costs can go up, and that's whether because the scope of the scheme changes or because of inflation and so on, and we would clearly want to make sure that there was both cost control, but at the same time an ability to move money around and fund projects where that are already in the system but where their costs are increasing. So what this means overall is that we would, instead of being in a position where funding from specific pots is attached to individual funding schemes and therefore not available to fund other schemes that are ready for delivery. Instead, we move to a position where we're able to manage our funding in a much more flexible way. We're able to support swifter delivery of business cases as they are ready, but at the same time, we're guaranteeing that funding would be available to schemes once they have got to full business case stage, and as long as they stay within particular tolerances and delivery timescales. So that's the overall proposal. This paper sets it out in principle and is very clear about the fact that there is some further work to do around how the rules would operate, so what levels of tolerance are appropriate at each level, how risk would be managed, etc. And so the intention is to work on this over the next few weeks with colleagues in partner councils, and then bring a more developed proposal back to the Combined Authority in due course.
Thank you so much, Alan. And this reflects our approach to be more agile. That if the project is ready to go, then we shouldn't be, we should be able to then give you the green light to start delivery, and not have money just in a bank somewhere waiting for projects to be ready. So it's a more sophisticated way of approaching it, but actually chimes with all of our, as members of this committee, our desire to deliver for the people that we're representing, and certainly gets us into a more mature position for that single settlement as well, to show that we can team and ladle monies as Alan outlined, but within tolerances and bearing in mind risk, but that we want you to be delivering on your projects in your region for the benefit of all of us. Any thoughts on this? Susan.
I think we all very broadly welcome the approach. Obviously, we want a sophisticated and speedy delivery across the region. I think it just goes back to my previous point with the Shared Prosperity Fund, that we need to make sure that all parts of the region are benefiting from the investment that's coming in. And that might mean sometimes putting more resource into one element of the region to make sure that they can actually take advantage of the delivery focus that we've got. So obviously we're a very thin authority, we've got very low resources, and therefore that needs to be recognised in any sort of deliver kind of priorities, which of course I endorse. But we just need to be mindful of inclusivity as well, of course, West Yorkshire.
Thank you. And that's where the growth plan will come in, because the growth plan is also, as I say, it's not growth at any cost. It's got to be inclusive growth as well. So, any comments? No? Great. Good to see. Thank you. So can we recommend that the CA notes the capital funding pressures and the outline proposals to develop improved ways of working? Fabulous. Thank you so much. So moving on to item 15, the assurance framework. You will remember back in the midst of time, you told me as local authority partners that the assurance process could work better for you, and I hope you can see that we've taken on your thoughts, and this paper sets out the key findings and proposed changes aimed at enhancing the effectiveness and efficiency of our assurance process. So can I invite Sarah to please talk to this report?
Thank you, Mayor. So the paper sets out the kind of findings of the review that started in 2023. I think it's just worth rehearsing, given that we've talked about spending lots of resources today, why we've got the assurance framework in the first place, and that is to make sure that we have got the necessary systems and processes in place to ensure that we successfully delivering against our ambitions, but that any decisions that we make allow us to provide the government, the CA and our partners assurance that those decisions are proper, transparent and deliver value for money. So it's really important that we just bear that in mind as we kind of just talk about the review. So the review started in 2003 and it was in line with the requirements of the kind of the English Devolution Accountability Framework. And that review focused on kind of a broad range of issues, but primarily respect of governance, decision making and the assurance process itself, really. And that was really kind of important in making sure that we kind of address some of the points that you've made, Mayor, around being flexible and proportionate, but also agile and being able to move with speed, really. So really important review in terms of looking at some of the key issues that have started to emerge over time. I think we have got a really well-respected assurance framework, but it is this constant making sure that it is fit for purpose moving forward. So the key findings of the review really focused on kind of simplification, flexibility, proportionality, duplication, and kind of valuing existing processes. And it also kind of highlighted the need for more collaborative working across the piece in terms of how we kind of take that assurance framework forward. I think to kind of build momentum, we have actually started implementing a number of the changes already, and these are highlighted in the report. So we have formed, for example, an officer investment board and investment priority portfolio boards, and that is around making sure that we have got that pipeline of projects and programmes moving forward. And also to kind of speed up decision-making, kind of directors having ownership of kind of project approvals that are recommended to decision makers and revised and kind of simplified project approval reports so that there's great efficiency in kind of how we dealing with projects as they come forward. I think in terms of strengthening proportionality, really looking at more risk-based approaches and kind of that's looking at kind of increased and standardised assurance tolerance levels. So really looking at where we need to kind of make sure that those tolerance levels are right, reflecting the kind of the risk that's related to any specific programmes. And we've also, alongside that, done a review of kind of templates and guidance so that we have got that, you know, we've not got a sledgehammer to crack a nut. We're not kind of applying really high level kind of project and programme assurance on projects that are perhaps smaller. As previously outlined, a key conclusion was around that more collaborative working is required. So I'll come on to what we've started to do around a Team West Yorkshire assurance group that's been set up, which has been really valuable as part of that review. In terms of, we've had a number of workshops with partners around how we can perhaps, really get underneath the skin of what's causing some of the issues, and that's been incredibly valuable, I think, in kind of coming up with some of the proposed changes that are set out in the report. And as Alan mentioned earlier, I think one of the key elements that's come out that's been welcomed by partners is that introduction of a stage note to the assurance process, which will really get us into that kind of consistent approach to developing more robust pipelines in the future. I think other elements that we're looking at are a simplified strategic assessment template, and we're also going to be looking at the role of the benefit cost ratios, BCRs, in decision making is proposed. So that's a piece of work that we are going to be picking up moving forward. And I think the other element I think that's highlighted in this paper is that review with partners so that we're not duplicating processes that might be across the piece, and both internally and I think in partner agencies. So really looking at where we can not going against the kind of the accountability framework, but really looking at where we can enhance what we've got and not duplicate. And as I said earlier, I think that the final point is around that network that's been set up, which we'll be using as we move through these proposed changes to kind of refer back to on an ongoing basis. I think particularly important alongside the managing capital spend report that's gone there to make sure that we're constantly checking that assurance framework enables us to deliver the ambitions in that paper. So next steps in terms of the assurance framework, reporting back to governance and scrutiny, audit and scrutiny committees on the proposed changes, amending the assurance framework to make sure that it's in line with those that have been agreed, and making sure that we inform MHCLG of any amendments. We obviously need to do that. We don't think anything here is going to be cause for concern, but we do need to make sure that they are aware of the changes that we're proposing. and that we want to make sure that we're like kind of communicating those changes out to broader partners and making sure that where need be, we you know, putting in place training mechanisms so that everybody's up to speed with what those changes are. And again, just ensuring that we've got ongoing alignment with that managing capital spend. So I'll stop there and just invite any comments.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And can I say, since your arrival, that collaborative, collegiate approach, and I think Team West Yorkshire Assurance Group, I want to thank them for their work, because it's really important we get proportionality and simplicity into the assurance framework, that you don't have to go through the same torturous process for something that is not potentially a culture project in comparison to a big bridge or a big infrastructure project, and how do we empower our colleagues to make those sorts of decisions. So it's not like you've got to prove it to us, but how can I be helpful to help you get through the assurance process. So honestly, thank you so much for the work that you and the team do in this space. Have we any comments on the assurance process? Yes.
Obviously welcome this. It's simplified. I think we've all local authorities would welcome this step. It's that less than 500,000 now. It's just one stage, a simplified stage to get through. Is there a sort of speedier way for that to get through as well? Just obviously in the past we have been obviously kept back with some very low level investments. Actually, I just wonder if does that speed it up as well? I mean, is there a way that we can do that decision making at local level? And that devolved decision making on that kind of thing.
I think that's part of the review around just making sure that we're aligned with other processes. That's something we can certainly take away and have another look at. That has been feeding in around how do we kind of speed up that decision making on lower level projects, but we can certainly pick that up in. I think that's part of the next stage of some of the review work that we're doing with local authority partners.
Super, thank you. Okie doke. So let's note that the work has been undertaken to review the assurance framework and the changes that are already implemented, and to approve further proposed changes, and authorise the required amendments to the West Yorkshire Combined Authority Assurance Framework, and also to delegate authority to the CA's Chief Exec to approve the amendments to the West Yorkshire Combined Authority Assurance Framework, and thereafter, as we've just heard, to inform the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government of the amendments. Happy to approve and delegate authority. Thank you all so much. Moving on to transport leadership structure. This outlines critical developments in the transport strategy on the creation and restructuring of key roles to enhance delivery and management of our transportation initiatives. Simon.
Thank you, Mayor. So we've already discussed previously on the agenda a number of transformational activities that are underway within transport in West Yorkshire. In preparing for this, I've been reviewing in consultation with yourself, Councillor Hinchcliffe and others, the leadership team within transport to ensure that we have a forward-looking leadership arrangement. The conclusion from that review is set out in the report here for members' approval. Principally, the changes that I am proposing are firstly the introduction of a bus franchising programme director role to oversee what is a series of one-off activities, as we talked about earlier in the agenda, over the next 4 years. The second change is to move from the previous approach of Transport Operations and Passenger Experience Director to a Transport Services Director, who in many ways is looking then to develop up our approach to transport services, ready to receive the transport services responsibilities that will follow from the introduction of bus franchising. And to assist in that regard, I'm looking to move the process of asset renewal, and of course we've had some recent experiences of the importance of us being able to give good leadership to asset renewal into the responsibility of the capital programme director going forwards.
Thank you so much. Any comments on those two new posts? we always were all aware that we need to recruit in order to get these huge infrastructure projects over the line. Any comments? No, thank you so much. Can we confirm that your agreement to the full set of recommendations set out in the report? Thank you. Moving on, we're nearly there, folks. Moving on to item 17, the corporate plan 24-25. And this introduces the corporate plan. You'll be aware we shared a draft of this at our meeting in March, and this provides an update following the mayoral and general elections. And we're intending to develop a multi-year corporate plan in future. But if I can just ask Sarah Eaton to talk us through the recommendations.
Yeah, so just quickly, Mayor, conscious of time again. The paper really just introduces the corporate plan, which is now attached to Appendix 1 to the report. As you'll see in the kind of corporate plan, what we've tried to do to kind of simplify arrangements and align to the West Yorkshire plan, we've now moved towards identifying our priorities and identifying our activity under the West Yorkshire missions that are set out in the West Yorkshire plan, and we think that will give us much more of a focus on how we're going to deliver our contribution to that plan over the coming year. There are also, in terms of that structure, we've also started to set out the key measures that we're going to demonstrate the kind of the impact and progress that we're making against each of those missions. That is a change in the structure of the plan, which I think is going to be really important as we move into the next phase, which is that kind of opportunity to develop a 4-year plan moving forward, a multi-year business planning. That's going to be really important in terms of aligning to the new mayoral term, but also kind of demonstrating how we're going to deliver over that period of time, really. So at the minute we have got that 12-month focus, and that 4-year focus will give us much more opportunity to kind of set out what we're going to be doing over that period of time. What we will need to do, which is highlighted in the paper, is that because some of the kind of the budget has been agreed today, there are gaps in that plan which we'll need to fill. So we will need to fill out that section on corporate finances now that budget has been agreed, and we're also conscious that there are some of the changes to the CA mean that we've got to amend some details in there about representation. So we will be taking those away and making this plan current after the meeting, and as a result of that we are seeking delegation to the Chief Executive just to make those final changes so that the plan can be published and put online. And I'll stop there.
Thank you so much. Any comments on the corporate plan? Yes, Councillor Hinchcliffe.
Just if we can make sure going forward, if it's going to be a 4-year plan, obviously to engage all the local authorities in that, because obviously a lot of this corporate plan obviously affects and supports our own development as well and our own plans. So good, again, going forward in a partnership manner, I think.
Yes, absolutely. And Asma?
Just with the private sector engagement, it states that the Mayor's Council brings together the influential businesses. This was the ambassadorial roles that we discussed and spoke about. Is there more context around that as to how you see that developing? Because obviously there's input from local business that's already covered in your paper, but where the council are going in terms of the influential businesses and the impact that will have, is there more context around that eventually?
I could maybe share this with Felix, but just to say, obviously the business board is predominantly SMEs. The Mayor's Council is those big companies such as Asda, Morrison's, Arla and others. And we've had a couple of meetings that have been really productive. And for them, it's access also to the centre through the Mayor group. But they are also going to be privy to our ambitions and our growth plan, and obviously the corporate plan will be part of that. But Felix, if you would like to briefly just respond to that.
Thank you, Mayor. At the last business board, we took a paper which looked at the process for appointing various ambassadors to the business board who would represent the board in various specified thematic areas. That process was delegated to the chair, Mandy, in consultation with the mayor and with you. I'm not aware of any further progress on sort of moving that on, but Mandy's been working through which thematic areas, which specialisms the business board will benefit from appointing specific ambassadors. And I think, I'm sure for the next board meeting that there will be a paper that picks that up and makes sure we can make some further progress.
Thank you so much, Felix. Okie doke. Let's go to the recommendations. Are we happy to recommend the Combined Authority approves the Corporate Plan 24 for publication? We are. And that the Combined Authority authorises the Chief Executive delegated responsibility to sign off the final draft of the Corporate Plan for publication? We are. Thank you so much. Moving on to political balance requirements. Item 18. This details WICA's orders, legal requirements for CA membership and political balance on committees. If I could hand over to Rebecca Brooks, our Legal Corporate Service Lead, to talk us through recommendations.
Thank you, Mayor. This paper provides for noting the legal requirements of the West Yorkshire Combined Authority orders in respect of political balance membership of the Combined Authority and seeks agreement to formally adopt the guidance appended to the report as part of the Combined Authority's constitution. The guidance reflects existing established practice for the mechanism by which political balance is calculated and achieved on the Combined Authority, Governance and Audit Committee and Scrutiny Committee, all of which carry legal requirements to reflect, as far as reasonably practicable, the political balance prevailing at the time. Codifying these arrangements formally as part of the Constitution will further transparency in respect to those calculations and seat allocations. Details of how the calculations are carried out and how unallocated places are determined are set out in the papers. The guidance also provides for how parity across political groups is achieved through officer support briefings concerning Combined Authority business, and this links to the member officer protocols which already form part of the Constitution. The guidance reflects the importance of officer political neutrality being preserved and group confidentiality being maintained by officers.
Thank you so much. Any comments on the political makeup of the item? Membership of the CA? No, lovely, thank you. So can members confirm their agreement to the full set of recommendations as set out in paragraph 2 of the report? Super, thank you. Okie doke. And then we've just got the minutes for information. The report provides members with details of the minutes of committees or notes of informal meetings of members that have been published on the West Yorkshire Combined Authority website. We did it. 1:30. I can't believe it. Thank you for your patience, your concentration on what was quite, not really in local authority terms, but for me, a marathon. I know that you have day-long meetings, but thank you so much, everybody, for attending. And please don't let the sandwiches go to waste. And also, looking at the corporate plan, if you want a new photo, it's tough. The photo's going to stay. So just to remind members that the next meeting is on the 19th of September. Thank you all so much. And if we can close the meeting, Adam, thank you.